This is Peter Wolf, also known as the Wolf of Goof of Mama Toofer, and you're listening to everything Fab Four. Oh man, you gotta listen to it and get some more on Salon.com. Do it to it and get right through it, because that's what rock and roll and the Beatles are all about.
Welcome to Everything Fab Four, a podcast focused on fun and intelligent stories about the Beatles. I'm your host, Ken Womack, music culture columnist for Salon.com and a Beatles scholar and historian. No other band, or popular phenomenon for that matter, has enjoyed the global impact the Beatles have and continue to have more than 50 years later. They are part of our human fabric. They created music that continues to bring people together, and just about everyone has their own Beatles story to tell, some that are surprisingly deep and unexpected. This show seeks to draw those stories out in interesting and insightful ways. Remember, it's a Beatles world, and everyone has a story.
Rubber Soul itself was like, I think, the beginning of, you kind of have the beginning of psychedelic music in the Beatles' work there, because you have Norwegian Wood, you have the sitar, the Indian influence, you have Nowhere Man, which definitely feels like a psychedelic, like the beginning of the psychedelic era for them.
And Rubber Soul's just, I think, like it's the moment that they grew up.
Today's guest is American psychedelic rock band Blac Rabbit. Based in Rockaway Beach, Queens in New York City, Blac Rabbit is comprised of twin brothers, guitarists, and singer-songwriters Amiri and Rahiem Taylor. Originally forming the band in 2013, Blac Rabbit went viral in 2018 after the Taylor brothers began performing impromptu shows in New York City subways. A 48-second video of Blac Rabbit playing the Beatles 8 days a week took the internet by storm, netting 3 million views on Twitter and 14 million on Facebook in February 2018 alone. In short order, Blac Rabbit became an international sensation, performing beyond the subway in New York City's Bowery Ballroom and in such faraway locales as Berlin and Guatemala. In addition to covering the Beatles' Michelle for a Gucci advertisement featuring Harry Styles, the Taylors appeared on the popular daytime TV show Ellen. Blac Rabbit has famously recreated John Lennon and Yoko Ono's 1969 Bed In for Peace, recording Give Peace a Chance alongside Ono, Ringo Starr, Jeff Bridges, and New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. That December, the Taylors played Liverpool's Cavern Club and the Beatles Story Museum. In 2018, Blac Rabbit released their first LP, Interstella, which included the debut single Seize the Day, which has served as the Everything Fab Four theme song, beginning with our first episode with Steve Lukather back in September 2020. In 2025, Blac Rabbit began opening for Lenny Kravitz both in the United States and abroad. Blac Rabbit will be performing at the inaugural Everything Fab Four Fest, taking place this November 6th through 8th at the Berkeley Oceanfront Hotel in Asbury Park, New Jersey, where we'll be celebrating the 60th anniversary of the Beatles' Rubber Soul in fine style. Visit ef4fest.com for more information and to book your tickets today. Welcome, Blac Rabbit. Did you come from a musical family?
Yeah, music
Yes.
does run in our family quite a bit. Our grandfather, his name is Gerald Hayes. He passed away a couple of years ago, but he was a touring saxophone player. I mean, he basically played all around the world. He played in front of Bill Clinton. He would travel to. I remember when we were kids, he would fly to Russia. Ooh. He'd fly to different places and play for people. And our uncle is Louis Hayes, who's like a really well-known jazz drummer. He's played with Cannonball Adderley and many, many others. So music has been in our family for a long time. and I guess it kind of skipped a generation and then landed on us. Because my mom, she took more to visual art, but then it landed with Amiri and I. I think
on top of that, I would say in a very unorthodox way, which is because our grandparents, our grandfather and our uncle, they were jazz musicians, and we grew up listening to jazz, but we didn't like connect with it in like learning that style of music specifically, but it did open our ears up to like learning stuff by ear, figuring out tunes on the piano and the guitar and stuff like that. So, and over time, we got a lot of, we were more auditory learners. We just learned from hearing what sounded nice and putting it back together.
Yeah, our grandpa was like, when he was around, he was very much like, you guys need to learn the classic way. He tried to get us to learn like advanced music theory and really try to like instill that in us. But I think, I don't know, our brains had different plans for us, I guess. And now here we are.
Yeah, I mean, that's such an interesting question, isn't it? I mean, you know, you meet people who are classically trained, who have this background in theory, et cetera, and notation. And they kind of look down on folks who don't, but there is a different way in, right? Where you play on feel and sound. And in a lot of ways that does lead to innovation, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of the time, like it's like intuitive versus logical learning. For example, the drummer in our band, Patrick, who you're going to meet, he's an excellent drummer. Fantastic. I mean, he's a prodigy. Like when he was 2 years old, he was drumming, and he plays the two most diametrically opposed styles of music ever. Because he grew up in the church playing gospel, and then he also, but then he was like, his rebellion, I guess, was like, I'm going to learn death metal. So like that was how he started, and he actually didn't even like the Beatles when
I fall asleep listening to the Beatles. It was actually really funny.
He was like, but then I guess over the course of several years, now he loves the Beatles. That's all he listens to. I guess we successfully brainwashed him. So now, but like I play drums myself, but Patrick, I mean, he's obviously miles ahead of me. So like for Seize the Day, like I recorded the drums on that, but then whenever I try to get Patrick to explain to me like how he plays, he's just like, oh yeah, just do this. And it's like, some people learn, I have a theory about like some people learn intuitively. So they may be like really, really good at what they do, but they're not necessarily, but when you ask them to explain it or compartmentalize what they're doing, they might not have the vocabulary to do it. They just think like, I just do, you know. Whereas someone who maybe like worked harder to get to that level, they know the ins and outs of it more. They know exactly. Their fingers bled enough that they were like making the same mistake on the wrong drum fill to know exactly how it's put together.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I studied the French horn. I was in the orchestra for like 10 years. And when I got to the end of that journey and went off to college and did other things, I remember thinking that I really have mastered it in a lot of ways. I can play just about anything I want to and think logically and spatially about the music. But I had no ability whatsoever to improv or to even sight read or just sort of figure out a song in my head.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, they're definitely different skills, and I think both are equally valid too. That's the thing that always confused me. I think about like people arguing about which method is more valid. It's like they're both equally valid, and we need both types of musicians. Like, how many times do you hear of a band where, you know, the drummer or the bass player quits last minute and now we need somebody to sub in? That guy who's going to sub in is probably going to be the guy who could like read, who knows their theory, who can jump in and play just about anything. So I think both ways of learning serve their purpose, you know?
Well, and with the Beatles, who I think will probably come up in this conversation today, you know, the not the irony, but the sheer fact of the matter was they had both worlds in the studio for 7 years. They had George Martin,
Yep.
right, who studied at the Guildhall, and then they had them.
Yes, yes. And he was like, he really started to sort of guide them in this way that towards like, this is like towards pushing pop music to something bigger than what it was at the time. Because it was like incorporating his knowledge of classical music and classical training, at like even hearing like the harpsichord solo in the middle of In My Life, or the piano solo in the middle of In My Life. It's very much a classical piece thrown in the middle of this really catchy pop song, which is brilliant and created such a unique musical footprint for them.
And I think one of the most important things you can have, like, that was a perfect storm, George Martin and the Beatles, like, and one of the most important things you can have in your corner as a band is to have someone that can say, like, wait a minute, I don't think you can do this. Or wait a minute, yes, you should add this. George Martin would probably hear a harmony that they might have arranged themselves and said, actually lower that down a third. Like, that'll fit more into the harmony. And like, just having that guy in your corner is invaluable.
Yeah, and I wonder if they don't have that really unusual mixture of training and non-training.
Sure.
If the three of us are even listening to them today.
Mm.
I mean, I almost doubt it in a way.
I don't think John Lennon was thinking about Mixolydian scales and Ionian pentatonic.
Yeah, no, he was very much.
Yeah.
And where the great thing about George Martin is that he knew just when to get involved but enough, but not to stifle their creativity, because someone like him could have easily overwhelmed the four of them with music theory and all these ideas and stifled their creativity, but he just fit in right where it made sense. And by the way, I got to say, I like that Hofner bass that you got in the background there. Nice.
Thank you very much. Well, I use it in class when I teach my Beatles classes, so I can show the students the kind of tonalities they would get from different instruments, etc. Mm-hmm. You know better than I. I wonder, so, you know, the three of us are not first generation Beatles fans. We did not see the Ed Sullivan Show. We never saw the Ed Sullivan. It wasn't on when we were alive. What was your entry point where you discovered the band and the light went off?
So the way we discovered it was on our 15th birthday. Our grandmother got us the Beatles Rock Band video game. And ever since then, the first song in that game, the first level in the video game, is Back in the USSR. That was the first. I mean, I had known about like the basics, like, you know, She Loves You, All You Need Is Love.
I was going to say, because we got into the Beatles. I mean, we liked the Beatles when we were young because our grandmother bought the Beatles #1 CD and even showed us the Yellow Submarine movie when we were little kids. And I feel like hearing Eleanor Rigby for the first time when I was a little kid, I was already just like, then I was bought into their. I was like, this is incredible. I don't know anyone else who sounds like this. And that was before I even knew, like, even hearing that song, I was like, this is before I even knew they played guitars. I just heard the violins and cellos, and I was already, even just that was like a hook point for me, for sure.
But what pushed us into being musicians, I would say, was definitely around the time that our grandparents got us the Beatles Rock Band video game, and we started playing these plastic fake guitars and just thought to ourselves, why are we pressing green and red buttons right now? We should just learn the songs. And there were two of us. It worked out because, you know, I mean, we both started guitar at the same time in high school, but then I think our 16th birthday came along, and our grandmother, she bought us an acoustic bass and an acoustic guitar, and we just started picking it up from there. I think "And Your Bird Can Sing" was the first Beatles song we learned together.
And it made sense because we were singing even when we were really young too. I mean, we were singing like I think we knew already early on, even before we had heard the Beatles, that we were into music, because we had been singing a lot of Disney musicals too when we were little kids. So then it was like the combination of all of that, and then the Beatles buying the guitars, it all kind of just
that was when it clicked. There was a moment when it clicked. It was like, wait a minute, we were in musicals. We were at this. We did this theater ensemble for a little while called Tada. It was like an independent theater company, and they were teaching us like the theory of harmony and how to put all that together, and so like it's just an amalgamation of things. It's kind of
cool that when you needed it, sort of all the elements were already there from different.
Right, exactly.
We had the experience from like, performing and singing on stage, and even I think that even helped us too, because we, like, for a while, I mean, we were busking on the subway for a while. We didn't even have microphones. Amiri and I were literally just projecting our voices on top of the loud subways coming in and out of the stations. And like the experience that we had doing musicals when we were a kid definitely helped with that, because at that point we'd already been well acquainted with projecting our voices.
Like the Beatles, right? In Hamburg, you learned how to make voice.
Yeah. And the subway has a bit of that. It has its pros and cons, but one of the advantages of the subway is that you've got a nice natural chambered reverb from the inside of the sub. And like when you're in the subway station, you can kind of hear where that reverberated trail goes off, and you can really like pitch yourself into the note that you like harmonize really tightly.
And that's definitely the positive. And another positive is that it kind of went viral, right?
Absolutely.
It went viral.
Yeah, we were like, it was such a funny day the first time that we started learning of its virality, the video's virality, because we went home, and at first my dad, like, our dad came up to us and he was like, "Oh, did you see this video on Facebook? Like, it's got like, a few thousand views." And we were kind of like, "Oh yeah, whatever, cool." And then we like went to bed, and we woke up. The next thing we knew, it was like over the next 2 or 3 days, it stacked up to like 26 million views or something like that. And the next thing you know, people are calling us out on the subway, and they're like, "Oh, I know you guys." And we were like, we weren't sitting on social media watching the numbers rise. So we were kind of like, if you notice, like, people are calling out to us.
Yeah, it was like it kind of went from 5 people to like 20 and then people would be like, "Aren't you those kids playing Beatles? Can you bust out a song right now?" To like actually kind of like duck for cover sometimes. It's kind of funny.
How big was your repertoire in the subway? I mean, how many songs did you have if people wanted to call out requests?
Oh, I mean, boy. we used to do like, if we weren't going from train car to train car and we were standing stationary on a platform, I mean, we used to play for like 2 or 3 hour sets at a time. Mm-hmm. And then we'd take a little 10-minute break and then play another 3 hours.
I got the Beatles chord songbook when I was, I think, 16, 17. And I like basically learned almost every Beatles song in the catalog, like on some level, like either I'm doing rhythm or I'm doing some finger picking. So we go through a lot of them, but it depends on the day. We'll just feel it out. But sometimes we'll split it into like the classic era set of like, Please Please Me to Help. And then you have your like Rubber Soul to Magical Mystery Tour and onwards.
our favorite stuff to play these days with the full band is like we do a lot of the time. We love the rooftop set they did, like the last, the I've Got a Feeling, Don't Let Me Down, One After 909, like, and then we even add some of the stuff that was like in the Beatles rock band video game aesthetically to that. Like, okay, what if George had sung I Me Mine on the rooftop? Let's add that in there.
Yeah. Or
So-
like,
or
I
like,
Want
I
You,
Want You-
She's So Heavy,
Yeah.
Helter Skelter, you know.
And you must have this almost instant recall, right? Because before you played them, you already knew the songs.
Yeah, I mean, we like some of them we did. I would definitely say that as we started learning them on guitar, our awareness of
Focus.
all the songs like kind of expanded. Like we were
Yeah.
like, oh wow, now we're learning deep cuts, like Every Little Thing She Does, like that. We didn't know. There's no way I was going to know that before.
Yeah, that was
we had really dove in
That's a
deep.
deep one.
That's
Or
right.
like-
Be walking around with "I Don't Want to Spoil the Party" or "Baby."
Yeah. Yeah.
Although those are crazy good songs.
I should also mention too that we have we'll be also performing a set of some of our original music as well. We've got some good jams from our first EP that we put out in 2017, and some songs from our album on called Interstella in 2022. So you'll be hearing a little bit of all of that, and I think we're going to curate the set so that that everything flows, like songs that are almost reminiscent of a certain time, like kind of fit the medley or the vibe.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
We are just so lucky to have you. And of course, the occasion is celebrating the 60th anniversary of Rubber Soul.
Oh yeah, that's going to be really, that's going to be really exciting. So we're going to have to throw in a couple of good Rubber Soul tunes in there, maybe. Yeah, I think we got a few. Like, Norwegian Wood is like one of our favorite to play. I love the harmonies on that one.
We got to throw in everyone's favorite Rubber Soul song, "What Goes On."
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. We actually did that one. Did we do that one in Germany?
We
once?
did. It's a three-part harmony,
cool.
and we have Pat sing lead. He's doing the drums, and he's keeping that steady. And he can nail it. Actually,
Wow.
I'm really impressed.
Why do you think folks often see that record as this kind of turning point in their story?
Well, that was the moment I feel like they got a lot more ambitious with their songwriting. They became a lot more creative. They'd expanded past. Help was like, I feel like Help was the last like pop Beatles record, like completely pop Beatles record. I think Rubber Soul kind of marks the beginning of a new era where they were like, oh, let's get more experimental. Like, let's try to, it was actually even the last record where their previous recording engineer was involved. I think going forward after Rubber Soul into Revolver, their lead engineer even changed. Jeff Emmerich became the lead engineer after that. So it's a nice middle point.
Yeah. Almost
Because I heard a story that that basically the way that came up was that Paul McCartney was listening to Motown records, and he was like, "We need thicker bass. How are they able to get such a great bass tone? Like, and our bass is invisible in most of our early records." And he was just like, "We need to find somebody that can nail that." And Jeff was their guy.
Yeah, and Jeff, I think he implemented, from what I understand, is that he implemented a lot of production techniques that usually on that label and in that studio would have been considered a no-no. Like, you would have been fired. Like, oh, you want to mic the kick drum, close mic the kick drum, or you want to close mic toms or something like that. You would be like almost laughed at. But now it's like these are such common practices in the studio these days. So it was like the Beatles songwriting and then also the production
Sonically
were like just innovative. for Rubber Soul.
Especially,
for Revolve. Going after Rubber Soul.
Yeah.
But then Rubber Soul itself was like, I think the beginning of, you kind of have the beginning of psychedelic music in the Beatles' work there, because you have Norwegian Wood, you have the sitar, the Indian influence, you have Nowhere Man, which definitely feels like a psychedelic, like the beginning of the psychedelic era for them. If I needed someone, George's track feels like
I think they recognized. Well. I think they recognized that with Nowhere Man, or someone recognized it, because they put Nowhere Man in the Yellow Submarine movie. They didn't have to do that, but they definitely on some level realized that was, So, and Rubber Soul's just, I think, like it's the moment that they grew up. Like they just knew that what they wanted to do and just kind of develop. So
it sure is. It's this line in the sand, and it after that, it's all different. It's amazing how I like how you described what was going on with Help before, because they do kind of grow up and leave the mop top thing.
Yeah,
they're not going to be that anymore. I mean, they'll still have moppy hair for a while, but
it's funny. It's funny. Even the title track being called Help almost was like that was the breaking point. Almost like that call for help, John Lennon. It's almost symbolic for the breaking point of like something's got to change, like something's got to break through.
And George Martin sees that moment, right, guys? Is the time when he's going to try strings out, bring in studio musicians. He was very politically astute about how he worked with them. He knew how to back off, and he knew how to come in and bring in new ideas, but at the very right moment.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, well, I'm trying to make sure I get my history right here, but when I'm trying to remember, what year did Pet Sounds come out? Did Pet Sounds come out before Rubber Soul?
After.
Or it was after Rubber Soul? Okay. Because I know that there was like a creative bounce back between like Rubber Soul, then Pet Sounds, then Revolve. Like they kind of, the Beatles heard after Rubber Soul came out, and when the Beach Boys released Pet Sounds, Paul McCartney was like, that is incredible. That was also something where they stepped up to the plate and were like, all right, let's make it even more like interesting, musically complex, ambitious. And then Revolver was like a response to that in a way.
That's right. And
what I heard.
When they were on that last tour, when they were in LA, they met with Brian very briefly, and he played them an early draft of Good Vibrations.
Oh, wow.
And that had to, I'm not drawing this on any direct knowledge, but it's, for me, I see a line from that moment to Strawberry Fields and Penny Lane.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. 100%. The funny thing is, actually, there's early footage of John playing this keyboard that you blow into. I think it's called a harmonium or something like that. During the Hard Day's Night filming, he was playing the opening chords for Strawberry Fields on this harmonium instrument. And it's just crazy that he was able, and the fact that he was able to hold on to that for that long. And then, Brian is able to show them such an incredible song. And now Lennon actually has some ammunition.
That's how it is, though, right? You guys are songwriters. You have ideas that percolate over sometimes pretty long periods, right? You'll have a nice riff or a lyric.
Yeah, that's I think I used to think of songwriting as this linear process of like, obviously the further along you get, the better you are at it. But I think my views on that are starting to change. Like I've been viewing songwriting more as like, complexity doesn't necessarily indicate a good song. There are plenty of songs that are really complex. I think it's more about like emotional resonance and like preserving where you were, maybe even emotionally when you wrote the song initially. I could listen back to a demo I wrote like 5 or 10 years ago and be like, oh wow, I can feel what I was singing there. And I might choose to make that a demo and put it on a CD now, or put it on an album now and be like, yeah, I just wrote this. When really, no, I didn't.
Yeah, to the world. Exactly.
No, I didn't.
Exactly.
Yeah, to the world it's brand new, but to you it's like it could have been one of the first songs you ever wrote, and just a simple retweaking, reworking. Like, it's almost like songwriting and art in general is just not, it's not always linear.
Well, and
You can kind of see it as this timeless thing.
I'm a big fan of your original work. Were you writing? How early were you writing songs? Was it almost immediately once you made these discoveries?
Yeah, actually, I would say some of the songs that were on the EP and the album, we had since high school. We went to a pretty unorthodox high school, and it was kind of like a democratic, like, students were able to choose their own curriculum essentially.
Oh.
And it was a very like kind of on the forefront of democratic alternative learning.
Yeah.
And so what we did was we had a couple of parents, teachers, and volunteers in the school. We proposed to have a music studio built in the back of our school, essentially. And so we had like a bunch of parents and volunteers just come and build a music studio in the back of our gym in high school. And we spent a lot of time writing and recording and just, learning everything we could, just taking in bands like the Beatles. We love Phil Collins. We love Red Hot Chili Peppers, everything, just soaking it all up.
And you recorded some of the material, certainly for the EP, but also the album, right? In that kind of home studio recording setting.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of the EP was recorded in a way that was, almost entirely homemade, because we had a cheap Zoom recorder that was like an 8-track. And like literally it was like me with 3 cheap microphones, miking up the drum kit in our drummer's house, and I'd be like, oh, I'm going to play the drums, and Amiri would lay down the guitars, and we just threw it off an SD card, did a mix that I would even call a mix because I barely knew what I was doing. But that's also part of the fun of it, right? I think, is when you're right on the edge of, I kind of know what I'm doing, but I kind of don't.
That's when
there's like a 50% chance of me screwing this up completely. It's like when I'm having the most fun. And then, but the Interstella with Seize the Day and stuff, like those songs were written and recorded originally on a 8-track, but then we went into a studio to refine them production wise, because we wanted something a little bit cleaner. But even then, some of the tracks still, you could probably, like, if you really listen, some of the tracks were still recorded in like my living room, but like just produced nicer this time.
I'm really fortunate that I'm in 2 departments at my university. I teach in the music department and in English. So I teach writers and musicians. And what's interesting is they're united by one very critical aspect: problem solving. If you're writing a story, you've got to figure out how to do it. If you come up with a song, you have to figure out how to take the vision and make it happen. Do you guys? To me, that's the most fun about all of this stuff, is trying that you get an idea and then the hard part starts.
Yeah, I think like what we really love, I'm glad that we had those early experiences of working with cheaper equipment, and because now I think when we get into a studio, we're really good at just like Amiri could just pick up a guitar in 10 minutes and write a song like on a deadline. Let's say we have 3 hours booked at a studio. We're like, I think that early time of us working with cheaper equipment and cheaper spaces like forced us to become really good problem solvers when it comes to production and songwriting. So now we can just move fast. I mean, we can be like, not machines, obviously, because you don't want machines writing your songs. But like
AI.
Yeah, like AI. Have you seen this like craze? There's like AI writes the Beatles. There's like these AI videos,
and it's like, I am not John, I am not Paul. Have you heard those?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
That's pretty wacky stuff.
But another thing I think that's a benefit of like learning to think on your feet too is you spend a lot of time trying to, especially with our type of music, we do utilize a lot of effects and like different sonic techniques to kind of form a sound.
Yeah.
And like one of the most fun parts about like producing is finding the perfect balance between your vibe, like, which is like all the echo and the phaser and the distortion and saturation, and then but trying to also make it listenable too, because it can be a lot if you don't find that middle ground. So we have someone who we're working with who's an engineer named Ivan, who's been helping us like train how to like train our ears so we can say, okay, yeah, the kick drum sounds cool on its own, but if you put it back in the rest of the mix with everything, is it gonna get muddy? Is it gonna disappear? Like those important details is like what we've been learning. It's a nonstop educational university of learning.
I find that that's so essential too. Because what you're ensuring is that the moments are preserved, right? And that's what makes the Beatles so interesting. I mean, almost every song, there's something I'm waiting for, right? That I want to hear that resonates with me and has since I was like 10 or whatever, right?
Right.
And by you giving attention to that, I think it only makes the music richer.
Yeah. Well, they struck a really nice balance between being able to be the crazy, wild producers that they were, and then still writing these songs with so much heart and so much humanity in them. Because it can be, like most musicians know, that if you're in the studio, like it can be very tempting to layer tons of sounds on top of each other to oblivion, to the point where you're almost like obscuring the message of the song. But I think they were so good at writing stuff that was complex but simple at the same time, and also was very like, there's something like pure and childlike about their music too. It just brings you back to being a child.
Everything Fab Four is presented by Salon.com, the premier news, politics, innovation, and arts website. For more information, visit everythingfab4.com, where you can learn more about our podcast and my latest Beatles-related book, Living the Beatles Legend, The Untold Story of Mal Evans. The Everything Fab Four theme song, Seize the Day, is provided courtesy of Blac Rabbit, the high-octane Beatles cover band, an innovative psychedelic rock project from Rockaway Beach, Queens in New York City. Like what you heard today on Everything Fab Four? Be sure to subscribe, give us a rating, and recommend the show to your friends. Plus, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EF4 Podcast. Distributed by Salon.com, Everything Fab Four is a Wonderwall production. Remember, it's a Beatles world, and everyone has a story.